Welcome in on a Friday, everybody. Donald Trump asks for a do-over in the E. Jean Carroll case. Why his attorneys say this time it all comes down to evidence. And in Georgia, why would a father provide a 14-year-old an AR-style firearm? The accused Appalachia High School shooter and his dad now face a judge in handcuffs. I'm Reed Cowan. This is CBS News 24/7. Let's go. Right off the top, though, Donald Trump in a New York courtroom today fighting to overturn a $5 million judgment that found him liable for sexually abusing and defaming writer E. Jean Carroll. Trump's legal team says the verdict should have been tossed. They argue evidence was allowed at that trial that should have been excluded. So we got video to our monitors of Trump speaking at Trump Tower just after that hearing. Take a listen.
We had a trial today. It's an appeal of a ridiculous verdict of a woman I have never met. I don't know. I have no idea who she is. She wrote a book and she made a ridiculous story up. She put it in her book, and we're now appealing the decision. We had an extremely hostile judge appointed by Clinton. I have no idea who the woman is, and I never met her. Now, I don't know about a picture that was taken 40 years ago with her husband on a celebrity line, so I don't think that counts. But as far as I know, I never met her. I never touched her. I would have had no interest in meeting her in any way, shape, or form.
CBS News investigative reporter Graham Cates joins us now. Graham, Trump digging in his heel and hardcore right now.
Yeah, he said a lot of things that are similar to statements that have already been found by federal juries to be defamatory. This denying having ever met her, calling the whole story 100% fake. These are things that he's been sanctioned pretty severely for over the course of two trials. Some $88 million have been awarded to E. Jean Carroll. He doubled down on it during his speech. It was billed as a press conference, but it was a speech. And we reached out to Carroll's attorney, Roberta Kaplan, who reiterated something she's kind of been saying all summer since the most recent verdict, which is that they're keeping all options on the table. It was kind of hinting that they may, in fact, end up having to file another lawsuit against Trump.
His statement's really key in the argument about being defamed as a writer, E. Jean Carroll there. So this comes at a time when Donald Trump is facing a myriad of other problems with the courts and asking for new trials, asking for other things to be reevaluated given what the Supreme Court ruled. Talk to me about the hush money case and where we are on that.
Sure. So Trump in August asked for his sentencing date, which is currently scheduled for September 18th, to be pushed back as far as past the election. He said that would be more fair with regards to the election, but also give his team time to appeal if the case isn't overturned. And we're actually expecting this afternoon for the judge to decide whether he's going to keep that current date just a couple of weeks from now, September 18th, or push it back. Really, any moment now. We're expected. He told the prosecutors yesterday that he's expected to put it out today.
All right, Graham Cates, we appreciate that. CBS News investigative reporter. We know as soon as you get word on that, and if you get word in the next few minutes or during this broadcast, you'll let us know. Perhaps we can pop you back on and let our viewers know what happens there. All right, so let's bring in CBS News campaign reporter and attorney Katrina Kaufman. Now, Katrina, you're at Trump Tower. You just heard what Donald Trump had to say. We were able to show our viewers just a little bit of that, but we know you can fill in the blanks. What else did he have to say?
Reed, as Graham was just talking about, Trump was really on the defensive here about this E. Jean Carroll case. He was saying that he never knew her, that he never met her. Just to reiterate what Graham said, these are the very statements that got him in trouble before, that brought these over $88 million in verdicts against him. He also was talking about Jessica Leeds, who's a woman who testified at the E. Jean Carroll trial and who has accused Trump of groping her on an airplane, and he seemed very riled up about this. He even remarked at one point that now she will probably sue him too. Something that was really notable is Trump was standing flanked by all of his attorneys. They were lined up on either side of him, and at one point he said that he's actually disappointed in his legal talent. He had talked about how In the first E. Jean Carroll trial, one of his lawyers had encouraged him not to attend, not to testify. He also said he was disappointed that his lawyer today didn't bring up a dress that E. Jean Carroll had, which Trump claims would prove that he did not, in fact, do this. So it was very interesting to see him today at this press conference continuing to deny ever knowing E. Jean Carroll and what happened.
Yeah, and all of this playing out while Donald Trump is running for the highest office in the land. Give us some context on some of his other legal battles before we lose you.
So the other thing is Trump was bringing up all of these cases against him because really it's been a bit quiet this summer and suddenly they're all rearing their heads again. Just yesterday I was in D.C. for the federal election interference case. That is starting to move forward against him with briefing on presidential immunity. Today, he was trying to claim that all of these cases, even the civil ones, even the case brought against him in Georgia, are all being directed by the DOJ and rigged. As you were just talking about with Graham, we're waiting for a really important decision today about whether or not he is in fact going to be sentenced this month in the New York criminal trial. There's also, of course, this Florida case that was recently dismissed and which he today, as well as many times before, speaks very glowingly about Judge Eileen Cannon, how brilliant she is. And just last week, special counsel Jack Smith appealed that decision to the 11th Circuit, too. So suddenly he is facing all of these legal troubles again as we're really coming up to the election.
And the debates coming up as well. Helpful to have an attorney on a Friday explain all things legal for us. Thank you, Katrina. We appreciate that. Right outside Trump Tower. So another courtroom scene this time takes us back to the state of Georgia and that community still reeling, brokenhearted after a school shooting at Appalachia High School killed 4 and injured 9 others. The suspected gunman appeared in court for the first time. We're talking about 14-year-old Colt Gray. He heard the judge deny his bond in front of a packed courtroom. By the way, that courtroom also saw the accused shooter's father in handcuffs. You see him here rocking back and forth. This is Colin Gray. Read his rights, and the judge also denied him bond. That father faces a slew of charges: second-degree murder, involuntary manslaughter, and cruelty to children. And we are also now getting new details about the 2023 FBI interview with both the suspect and the father, following up on a report that they perhaps should go to that house and ask some questions. CBS News has obtained audio from that conversation. We wanted to let you listen.
All right. Do you have weapons in the house?
I do.
Are they accessible to him?
They are. I mean, there's nothing loaded, but they are down. All the school shootings, things that happened.
Yeah,
Hey, are you getting picked on at school? He is. He's getting picked on at school, and is everything okay? That's why I keep going up there.
No.
You know, because you never really know, and I don't want anything to happen to him. So,
being honest with me, I'm not saying you're lying, but it's
a serious thing.
It's not unusual for people to lie to the police. Okay.
He's familiar with that too.
You hear laughter there, but now very serious matter. We're also hearing from District Attorney Brad Smith about potential new charges that could be coming against that suspect. Listen.
There will be additional charges on Colt Gray. When he was taken into custody on Wednesday, we did not have the identities or the conditions of the other victims, so we were not able to charge on those offenses. So when the evidence comes in and they've been able a chance to heal physically, emotionally, and spiritually, we will get with them, and there will be additional charges that address the other victims in the case.
CBS News anchor and correspondent Jerika Duncan at that very courthouse. Jerika, I cannot imagine how difficult it would be for the families to sit in that courtroom and hear all of this evidence and actually see them in person.
Yeah, Reed, honestly, when I saw the amount of people that were coming in, they were 2 groups of families that were let in by court advocates. The first group was about 9 or 10, and then another group, about 7 or 8 or so family members sitting right there in the front row. And as you mentioned, the first time being able to lay eyes on the person that is accused of killing their loved one. Not only, again, did we hear or see rather Colt Gray, but we saw his father, Colin Gray. And as you just heard in that audio that CBS News obtained, he seemed to be very serious about the allegations made that his son was somehow connected to making comments on Discord that he was planning to shoot up a school. Something else that was in that 8-minute audio clip that CBS News obtained is he said that his son gets flustered, doesn't think straight. He tried to put your arms around him and make sure he's good, talking about his conversations with school administrators regarding his son. He said him and his wife had just split up. 2 of those kids went with the wife. Colt went with him, and that he was really struggling and having a hard time. So painting a little bit more of a picture about what was going on at home. But this is something that I found really interesting, Reed. He said, "I'm going to be mad as hell if he did." And this is referencing the sheriff's deputy saying to him that we think he may have made these threats online. He went on to say, and then with all the guns and all of the things, all the guns will go away, he said, and they won't be accessible to him. Those, again, were the words of Colin Gray, the father of Colt Gray, when asked about these allegations he made more than a year ago, saying, again, I'm going to be mad as hell if he did, and then all of the guns will go away and they won't be accessible to him. Obviously, that did not happen because we learned that he then gifted his son with the weapon that was used in this mass shooting 7 months later as a Christmas gift.
Yeah, all the guns did not go away. Jerika, what happens now to both suspects? When can we expect to see them back in court?
So this was the first court appearance, and in Georgia, they do a first court appearance followed by the grand jury, which will convene, not open to the public, October 17th, a preliminary hearing scheduled for December 4th. That could change, according to the district attorney. Then there will be an arraignment and a trial.
All right, Jerika Duncan, thank you so much for being there to bring that story here on the stream. All right, we have some breaking news. We want to get back to our legal expert, news and investigative reporter Graham Cates. Graham, you mentioned last time we talked to you, you may have some developments where Donald Trump's legal journey is concerned. You have it.
Yeah, that's correct. Donald Trump will not be sentenced in his hush money criminal case until after the election. The judge just released his decision. It will be November 26th. He also said that he'll rule on Trump's effort to set aside the verdict altogether on November 12th. So that means that this case is going to be stuck where it is through the election. Trump will remain, at the very least, a convicted felon or having been convicted of felonies through the election. But he also won't know what his sentence will be until after the election. And he won't know if the judge was persuaded by his arguments that, in fact, that verdict should be set aside until after the election.
So, Graham, I may be putting you on the spot, and this may not have come out, so forgive me here, but I've got to ask, in some cases, judges sort of write into their rulings and their decisions the why. Did the judge say why they decided to delay until after the election?
Yeah, and this has kind of been a theme for him throughout this case, going back to the day of arraignment way back in 2023. He's noted repeatedly how unique this case is in American history, even though the courtroom operated in many of the ways you'd expect for a regular criminal proceedings. He's frequently referred to his knowledge and his thinking about where this case stands in history, and that's what he said in his ruling today. He said this matter is one that stands alone in a unique place in the nation's history, and he said he thought about how it might. He acknowledged that pushing it past the election is something that he considered when making this decision.
All right, Graham, we appreciate you letting us know that you had those late-breaking details here. CBS News 24/7. Like we say, Graham, when we see it, you see it. Thank you for helping us to do that in such an immediate way. When we come back, we're going to be talking about an American activist killed overseas, where it happened, and who is now having to answer some pretty serious questions about why. Looking at headlines now, our video monitors bring us breaking news out of the Middle East. An American activist shot and killed in the Israeli-occupied West Bank. So here's what we know. Witnesses and activists say that she was shot by Israeli troops during a pro-Palestinian protest against settlement expansion. So the Israeli Defense Forces says they were there still looking into the incident, but they confirmed that troops had opened fire in the area. The State Department identifies her as 26-year-old Ayesner Ig. Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke on this while in the Dominican Republic. Listen.
I just want to extend my deepest condolences of the United States government to the family of Aishnor Esgiaga. We deplore this tragic loss. Now, most important thing to do is to gather the facts, and that's exactly what we're in the process of doing. And we are intensely focused on getting those facts. And any actions that we take are driven by the facts. So first things first, let's find out exactly what happened, and we will draw the necessary conclusions, consequences from that. As you've heard me say many times before, I have no higher priority than the safety and protection of American citizens around the world, wherever they are.
Violence has increased dramatically in the West Bank since Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel and Israel's war in Gaza. Meanwhile, our feeds now take us to Germany, where Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin gave this opening speech at a meeting considering giving Ukraine weapons in their fight against Russia. So our cameras got this from Austin on what's at stake in this war with Russia.
Putin seeks a world of empires and autocrats, a world where might makes right, a world where bullies get to invade their peaceful neighbors with impunity. And that would be profoundly dangerous for the United States and for peace-loving people everywhere. So the United States and our allies and partners worldwide rallied together. And today we stood up again for our values and our security. The members of this contact group understand what's at stake, and we won't back down.
Some $55 billion supporting Ukraine in their fight against Russia. Pope Francis arrived in Papua New Guinea today as he continues his 12-day tour across Southeast Asia and the Pacific. CBS News' Anna Matranga is traveling with the pontiff in a place where worshipers embrace Catholicism and indigenous beliefs.
Pope Francis has arrived in Papua New Guinea for the second leg of his 12-day tour to Asia and the Pacific. He's come here to show his closeness to remote Catholic communities and support for the poor and disadvantaged. During the brief arrival ceremony at the airport, the 87-year-old Pope, just off a 6-hour flight from his last stop, Indonesia, momentarily lost his balance but was steadied by aides. People lined the streets of the capital, Port Moresby, to catch a glimpse of Francis as he left the airport for the Vatican Embassy, where he'll be staying over the next 3 days. Now, Papua New Guinea is a predominantly Christian country, and about a quarter of the population is Catholic. It's also a very poor country, with 40% of its people living below the poverty line. According to Human Rights Watch, an estimated 70% of women here have experienced sexual assault or rape. Violence, tribal fighting, corruption, and police abuse are also rampant. Port Moresby is considered one of the most dangerous cities in the world. Francis is expected to address those social justice issues, as well as another one of his priorities, care for the environment. This nation is composed of over 600 islands and is ranked among the top 10 in the world in its vulnerability to climate change and rising sea levels. Reed?
Anna, thank you. The Pope is scheduled to visit East Timor and Singapore before returning to Rome next week. Hey, our live feeds now take us to New Orleans with the potential of flash flooding in Louisiana, and you can see it is a very wet washout there right now. That flood threat in Louisiana continues, and Jess is watching that and more in the region.
We continue to keep a close eye not only in New Orleans, but pretty much everywhere all throughout that area, where daytime highs today, they're sitting nice and mild. But the big story for us right now is that rain. Taking a look behind me as we head into the next couple hours, we're going to continue to watch these storms really build into communities like New Orleans, especially stretching all the way along that region where daytime highs today are mild, but those storms continue to build. Here's what Futurecast is showing heading into the evening hours tonight. Mississippi, Alabama, all the way over into Florida. We continue to watch heavy storms fall, and that's going to bring in localized flooding to these communities from New Orleans stretching all the way back into Houston, where they'll start to catch a break heading into our Sunday forecast. So as we take a look at our excessive rainfall outlook, really it's bullseye just directly over New Orleans. All of those coastal areas stretching its way over into the panhandle of Florida with a marginal risk into the evening hours tonight, early morning hours tomorrow. In total, we could see close to around 2 to 4 inches of rain fall in those local areas close to the coast. New Orleans, just a little bit more inland, gets spared with about a ½ inch of rain expected in that area, as well as southern Mississippi. We're also keeping a close eye on storms starting to build as a cold front sweeps throughout the Northeast. This is going to bring in some heavy thunderstorm activity from Ohio all the way over into Pennsylvania and New York, heading into our Saturday forecast. Our severe weather outlook stretches from New York all the way over into northern Kentucky with a marginal risk. Right now, we can see large hail and we can see some damaging winds as we head into the coming days, Reed.
All right, so you're watching the numbers over our heads. We are watching the numbers in your wallet. When we come back, a new jobs report out, how it could influence the feds when they look at interest rates. CBS News 24/7 back after the break. Until then, we'll keep watching the monitors. All right, the feds watching the new jobs report as they consider whether to lower interest rates. U.S. employers added fewer jobs than expected in August, and the unemployment rate dipped for the first time since March. Those are your headlines there, but here's how the Dow is reacting in real time. You see we're in negative territory there. By the way, tech stocks reportedly taking the brunt today after that jobs report came in mixed. CBS News contributor J.D. Durkin joins us live now. J.D., a lot of people were hoping that this jobs report could spark some light, but now we're seeing the reaction on Wall Street. How do you read it?
Yeah, we certainly are. Reed, good to be with you, and you're exactly right. I mean, we got no shortage of red on the big board here on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. It's a comparable story for the S&P 500, for the Dow, for the tech-heavy NASDAQ, and even the small-cap stocks. These are the major corporations that have smaller market caps. They're also deep into the red today. And I think it's a bit of a mixed bag in terms of where jobs are actually added in the U.S. economy. Overall, I don't think that the numbers we got today from the Bureau of Labor Statistics will necessarily jostle the central bank off of its expected path forward to lower interest rates. The expectation has been all summer that come September 18th, not very far away, we will finally, at long last, get the first of what is expected to be quite a series of interest rate cuts. Read, this would all come, of course, after several years of interest rate hikes as the central bank has attempted to combat rising inflation. But with the Fed pretty confident that inflation, for the most part, is under decent control, the Fed can focus a little bit more on deteriorating conditions in the U.S. labor market. And that was informed by the jobs report today. The biggest gains were in leisure and hospitality, healthcare, and construction. Biggest job losses in the U.S. economy last month, manufacturing and retail. I think the hopes had been, ironically, from some investors that maybe the jobs report would have been weaker than we actually had it. That might have informed the Fed's decision to do a bigger rate cut come September 18th. But the expectation here on Wall Street is for 0.25% reduction in the federal funds rate on the 18th of September.
All right, J.D. rocking the pinstripes on a Friday and keeping us in line there from New York. You have a good day. Thanks for streaming with us. All right, looking live at the U.S. cities where heat will again bear down for another day. Jess, we are bringing Jess in right now because as you look right there at Phoenix Live, we can understand that there will be triple-digit temperatures there.
Triple-digit temperatures anywhere from Phoenix into Las Vegas as we head into the coming days. It was a hot week for us off into the West Coast, actually. Areas like California still under excessive heat warnings lasting into this afternoon, and throughout the next couple days, we're going to continue to watch this heat really build in areas like Los Angeles, stretching down into San Diego, where triple-digit weather is also forecasted there. All along the West Coast, look at all of that red, that pink, as well as some gray too. What that is the National Weather Service has issued heat advisories, excessive heat warnings, and some air quality alerts too. Anywhere from San Diego stretching all the way up into Seattle. Everywhere along the West Coast right now, we are dealing with well above average conditions. And here's the reason why. There's a heat dome sitting directly over the inland portions of our West Coast. And as we head into the coming days, it starts to build and stretch its way closer to Nevada, California, allowing for those excessive heat warnings really to last. And so areas like San Diego, as mentioned, for today, flipping the page all the way into our Saturday forecast, and here we go all the way into Sunday. Throughout this weekend, we really keep a close eye on these communities where they're not going to get a lot of breaks and breaths of fresh air from cooler weather until we head into mid next week as that system starts to break apart. And taking a look at the next 6 to 10 days, you can see that issued by the Climate Prediction Center. More neutral conditions all along that West Coast as we head into mid portions of next week as that heat slowly starts to shift its way off into the east into communities like Kansas, stretching all the way over into Wisconsin. We'll have more on that heat coming up in just a bit, Reed, but it has been a very hot one for communities, even like the Bay Area.
Wow. Okay, Jess, thank you so much. All right, when we come back on CBS News 24/7, streaming coast to coast and worldwide, Donald Trump's sentencing set and then reset when they've pushed it back and why when we come back. We've got some breaking news out of Maryland, and most chilling, at a high school, an incident at Joppatown High School. We want to be very measured about what we report here because there's a lot that we do not know about this situation. In fact, what you're seeing there on X from the Hartford County Sheriff's Office is about all we know. They say the Hartford County emergency personnel are on their way. These are live pictures coming from one of our CBS partners there at the high school, and you are starting to see a little bit of a response. Just to sort of give you an idea of where this is about 20 miles outside of Baltimore. And so we're watching this story closely. As soon as we know more about that police presence at Joppatown High, some of the victims' families watched in that courtroom gallery. That comes as the community of Winder continues to mourn the loss of 2 teachers and 2 students as the result of an attack that the sheriff there calls evil. CBS News correspondent Dave Malkoff considers his coverage on the case outside of the scene. And Dave, father charged, son charged, but there was some business of calling the son back into the courtroom to correct something?
Yeah, here in the state of Georgia, Reed, good to be with you. There, you can't charge a juvenile with a crime that leads to the death penalty. They can get life without parole. They can get life in prison. They can get any lesser sentences. But even if you are charged as an adult in the state of Georgia, you cannot get the death penalty. The judge kind of said that at the beginning, but then he had to call the student back into the courtroom and explain that the death penalty was not on the table for at least the student who is 14 years old and now the suspect in this case.
So just how much, if they are convicted, time are they facing, and is there really any indication of when the trials could begin, Dave?
Well, they're still working on that because they just made their first court appearances. But it is kind of a trend that we're seeing with legal precedent in this country that if you are to give a juvenile unfettered access to a weapon and then that weapon is used in an act of mass violence in a school, then the parent can be held accountable for this. And that's what the prosecutors are going with in this case, charging Colin Gray, who is 54, who was not the shooter, or was not the suspected shooter in this case. He was the father of the suspected shooter. I know that names sound familiar, but he's now being charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, 2 counts of second-degree murder, and 8 counts of cruelty to children. And remember, 2 children died in this case. And the prosecutors are saying that what the Christmas gift was to his son of this AR platform weapon, the prosecutors say that led to the death of these 2 children and 2 teachers as well.
And we're also understanding that those who are wounded, still in the hospital, still coming out of that process, that their stories and their injuries could inform other charges to come as well. CBS News correspondent Dave Malkoff, thank you so much for being at the scene and streaming with us once again today. We are also following breaking news on Donald Trump's hush money case. So here's your headline in that. A judge has just agreed to delay Trump's sentencing until after the November election. CBS News political director Finn Gomez joins us live right now. Finn, we heard Donald Trump talk about that and many other things there at Trump Tower. I want to approach this from a political standpoint. We know we're going into the presidential debate soon. We know that his vice presidential nominee will probably be asked about this on the stage going up against the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz. How could any of what he had to say help him politically?
Well, I mean, if you look at the political context, I think the ruling in the hush money election interference trial, I think that is a significant political win for Trump because initially the sentencing was going to be on September 18th, which is just 7 weeks before Election Day, which is November 5th. Now that it's moved to November 26th, it's a big victory. It's after the election, right? There's not that distraction of that, if you will, politically for his supporters and for those he's trying to appeal to. However, following the E. Jean Carroll hearing earlier in the morning, we did see this sort of rambling list of grievances at the press conference afterwards, where he basically, he attacked E. Jean Carroll. He went after some of the other women who had testified in those trials against him, where he was found liable by a jury of sexual abuse. By attacking those and really focusing at this press conference on this issue, on these maybe these past allegations of sexual misconduct, it draws more attention to that at a time when voters are really focused on kitchen table issues, pocketbook issues that matter most if you look at the latest polling in those battleground states. So to really focus on this politically, it seems to erase any gains he may have made on the political issues that matter most to potential voters that he's trying to appeal to. So it seems like a misfire, frankly, Reed, when we're so close to the election, just 2 months out.
And Finn, you mentioned those kitchen table issues. Want to pivot here just a little bit. We know that Donald Trump, he spoke yesterday in New York to people who work with the economy about the economy. Kamala Harris has revealed her plans for the economy should she be elected. How is she preparing for the debates to make her case? Because a lot of people are saying, look, she's saying she wants to do this. She's not saying how.
Right. Well, we do know, like, there has not been a lot of details revealed about how she's prepping for this debate that happens on Tuesday in Philadelphia, in that critical battleground state of Pennsylvania. We do know that she's in Pittsburgh. She's there with her team preparing for this really highly anticipated debate. It's the first debate since that June 27th debate, the infamous one with President Biden versus former President Trump, and it's really her first chance to go head-to-head. And if you recall, Reed, this will be the first time they've ever actually been in person together. So it's significant on many issues. But, you know, if you look at momentum right now, one of those characteristics to define what is momentum right now in this cycle, in this race, is money, fundraising. We do know that Harris raked in $361 million last month per her campaign, which is just a wide cash advantage right now against Donald Trump. It's much as $100 million advantage of cash on hand. And that war chest really goes to a lot of areas that really, that is traditionally implemented now with 2 months out to the election. That's TV advertising, that's mobilizing base voters, really reaching out to other voters who are on the bubble perhaps in those fundraising, in those battleground states. So that cash advantage is significant. But there's a lot of attention focused on this debate, Reed. It will be one of the big, really tentpole moments of this cycle with, again, just 60 days away until November 5th.
CBS News political director Finn Gomez, and once again, that's a fit on a Friday. Thank you, Finn. We appreciate it. All right, so Donald Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, is in Southern California. He toured the U.S.-Mexico border in San Diego. We got this from him. Listen.
You've got millions of dollars of San Diego money going to illegal aliens. That means health care services that a lot of American citizens aren't enjoying. That means mental health services that a lot of American citizens can't get. And it's happening because Kamala Harris refuses to do her job. You know what Donald Trump and I want to do? We want to go to war with the Mexican drug cartels. We want to close down the American southern border. We want to reinstitute deportations. And we want to stop the insanity at the southern border.
Vance is also looking to raise some campaign cash while he's in California. He'll be attending a fundraiser in Los Angeles on Sunday to try to do just that. Hey, our live feeds now take us to New Orleans, where more rain is increasing the threat of flooding. You can see those skies. They look downright angry there. Some cotton hanging low there in Louisiana, and you see the water there. The concern is that those banks of the water could swell because of the rain in the atmosphere, Jess.
Absolutely, and we keep a close eye on the next 24 hours as storms are still developing down there right now. Let's start off with our map just directly below me. What you see just below me is some flood advisories issued by the National Weather Service all along that coastline, stretching from Texas close to Corpus Christi all the way over into the panhandle of Florida as these storms continue to billow in that community. All those communities actually heading into the next 24 hours. So taking a look behind me, here's what's happening as we head all the way into the next couple days. These storms still starting to build, especially moving in from offshore. Those sea surface temperatures are warm. There's a lot of heat in this area. It is humid, it is wet, and we continue to watch heavy storms and potential flooding happen in communities like New Orleans all the way down along that shoreline too. All the way over into Panama City, PCB, as well as Destin, they're going to get hit with some heavy storms this weekend as that system starts to decay and move its way off closer to Florida. But the excessive rainfall outlook is really bullseyed with that enhanced risk just over New Orleans heading into the next 24 hours. That means that we could see heavy rainfall anywhere up to around 2 to 4 inches along that shoreline, closer to Boothville, actually, as we head into the evening hours tonight, early morning hours tomorrow. We continue to keep a close eye on those communities there, but as we head north, there's some storms happening all the way up into the northeast too. This really strong cold front starting to move from Ohio, stretching over into New York within the next 24 hours. That's bringing in some severe weather for those communities, especially across the state of Ohio, northern portions of Kentucky. A marginal risk there, meaning we could see large hail throughout that region, as well as some damaging winds. We'll continue to keep a close eye on that storm system as we head into the next couple days, and the heat stretching all the way off into the east coast and the west coast. But for now, back to you, Reed.
All right, we want to get our viewers updated on some breaking news right now. Earlier, we told you about a post on X from a sheriff's department in Joppatown, Maryland, where they said there was an incident at a high school. We've been watching through our partners there a lot of coverage here, and we want to go right now to what they're able to tell our viewers updating the situation.
Jessica, I am just learning right now into the WJZ newsroom that Joppatown High School is reporting that there was a fight on campus. This is an isolated incident. A weapon was brought into the school and a fight ensued. So we suspect that we are going to learn more about this, but that is what Joppatown High School officials are releasing right now at this point. So, you know, obviously we will learn more and find out exactly who they may be trying to look for, if at all, at this hour.
All right, so that is what our CBS partners have been able to tell their viewers, but I wanted to share with you what came to parents. We've been able to obtain this. This came from the school to parents. It was a fight, like you just heard, but then to raise the concern there is the fact that a weapon was brought onto campus and used in that incident. So anytime a teacher or a staff member or a student sees trouble at a school, and like the school just told parents in this very red alert message here, that a weapon was brought into that and it was used, that raises the concern of so many people. So here at CBS News 24/7, when we see it, you see it. That is why we wanted to bring you that coverage. There's still a lot of questions about what happened, what the weapon was, how it was used, and whether anybody got hurt. We'll continue watching that. In the meantime, we're going to take a little bit of a break, and we'll be back after this. Breaking news, we have our CBS partners hovering high over Joppatown High School in Joppatown, Maryland. We just want to button this up and let you know that despite the fact that there's a lot of police response there, the sheriff has been able to tell people in that area, very concerned when they see these emergency personnel, that this appears to be an isolated incident. There's no threat to anybody else on campus. Okay, so our video feeds now take us to New York City. The feds raided the homes of at least 4 top officials in Mayor Eric Adams' administration. Here's coverage from our CBS News partners in New York.
Federal agents have raided the homes of at least 4 top officials in the Eric Adams administration.
Sources tell CBS New York that list includes Schools Chancellor David Banks and NYPD Commissioner Edward Caban. Elijah Westbrook is live outside City Hall in Lower Manhattan with what we've learned so far. Elijah.
That's right. Good morning, Mary and Chris. Well, City Hall officials say federal authorities have not accused the mayor or his top officials of committing any crimes. But beyond that, the details surrounding this investigation remains a mystery this morning. Sources do tell CBS News New York that federal agents raided the homes of Deputy Mayor Sheena Wright and City Public Schools Chancellor David Banks, who live together, the chancellor's brother, Deputy Mayor Philip Banks, and Police Commissioner Edward Caban. This was all on Wednesday. We're also learning the feds have seized electronic devices from the home of Timothy Pearson. He's a mayoral advisor and former high-ranking NYPD official. Sources also telling us that Wednesday's raids are unrelated to a separate federal corruption investigation involving alleged donations made by Turkish officials to the mayor's 2021 campaign, for which the FBI seized Adams' electronic devices last year. Here's the mayor speaking to political reporter Marsha Kramer Thursday afternoon about what he says he knows regarding this case.
I'm not aware of any misdoings, and I'm going to, again, follow the rules, and I will continue to tell the team to do that. Those are questions I can't answer. I know what I'm going to do, and that is information that's needed to show that I have always followed the law. We're going to give that information.
Now, pertaining to Police Commissioner Caban, the NYPD put out this brief statement you see there, reading that the department, quote, is aware of an investigation by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York involving members of service, end quote there. That is the latest at this time. From City Hall, Elijah Westbrook, CBS News, New York.
All right, jumping the map from east to west, we're also watching video on our feeds on the West Coast. A fiery plane crash near Los Angeles. Here's how CBS News Los Angeles covered that for their viewers.
Two scares in the skies overnight as a chopper and a small plane came down.
Both are connected with Hawthorne Airport, and the NTSB is investigating. KCAL News reporter Cara Finstrom is live at the small plane crash on Hawthorne Boulevard and 126th Street with new information. Cara?
Jamie, we were able to trace the plane's tail number to the last registered owner. I reached him by phone, and he was shocked to hear about this crash here early this morning. He says he sold that plane a few weeks ago and that there had been no issues with it, and the new private owner was also having a mechanic check it out. Investigators now looking at what's left of this plane. Amazingly, the two people on board survived, but they were taken to the hospital with critical injuries. Locals say it's fortunate nobody else was hurt.
It's so close, you know. I told my wife this morning, thank God, it could have hit our house if he miscalculated. But as you can see, he put it in between two streets, the City Hall and the hotel. So it's amazing. It really is.
The single-engine plane came down at Hawthorne Boulevard at 126th Street right around 12:35 this morning. The LA County Fire Department says no nearby buildings were damaged. The people on the plane appeared to have suffered some burns and other injuries. A fire captain says the plane appears to have been descending towards Hawthorne Airport, which is very close, shortly before this happened. But whether it was attempting to land or had already tried still needs to be confirmed. Both the NTSB and FAA are now investigating. One witness told us he heard what sounded like an explosion and then ran to help.
Once I made out that there was somebody there, ran over and tried to offer the man some aid. One guy was throwing some dirt on him. He was actively on fire. He was actively engulfed in flames, conscious. His left leg was mangled. He was in flames and his head was bleeding profusely. And he was conscious, screaming. Myself and a couple other gentlemen helped pull the man away from the wreckage. I grabbed his right arm, the guy grabbed his left arm, and we pulled him about 20, 25 feet away from the wreckage. Wow.
Crazy to hear. And again, this is what's left of that small plane. Hawthorne Airport, it has a nearly 5,000 foot long, 100 foot wide lighted runway that can handle aircraft weighing up to 90,000 pounds. It also has an FAA operated air traffic control tower. Again, FAA, NTSB now investigating this, and as we get more information about it, including any updates on the pilot and the passenger, we'll bring it to you.
Well, that's it for us at CBS News 24/7 on a Friday. Thanks for watching as we bring you breaking news coast to coast and worldwide. Make it a great weekend.